All right, so I'm going to shift to a topic that I know you love so much. Is Zillow necessary?
Well, apparently the general population, the masses of buyers and sellers think so because they're very successful. It's amazing if you think about it. How short of a time Zillow has existed and what they have accomplished. It is truly amazing. Now, you could look at some of these big real estate companies and say, hey, they must have missed the boat because Zillow pulled the rug right out from underneath of them. Is it necessary? I think that what really, I guess you could make the argument that yes, it is. Why? Because that gave the general public a much wider access to the real estate market than what they have before prior to Zillow, because you had to go to your agent for information. And a lot of that information is just out there, and it's so easy to grab out there on the internet now. So I don't know how to answer that question, whether or not they're necessary. They must be because they're very successful.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I mean, I think they've made themselves necessary, right? But before Zillow, Realtor.com, I believe, existed prior to them.
Yeah.
And Realtor.com, in my opinion, is a little more less hip, and they're a little more dull and boring. I mean, people still use it. It's still like in third place as far as most search places. But if Zillow never came into place, that's probably would be the leader. Would probably be Realtor.com. So, but I think Zillow just had a vision that the other ones didn't, and they really took what you guys gave them.
Yeah.
And they built this.
And they sold it back to us.
Basically,
and we bought it.
You guys are the product, essentially.
Yeah, exactly right.
What are some good things about Zillow?
Well, I think it's I think the engineering on the site is awesome. I mean, it is very intuitive. It's easy to use. I don't really use it that much, but when I go onto it, I can. I think it's very easy to use. They started really, I think they were kind of the pioneers with actually telling people what their property is worth. So people have instant access to that. And of course, they're many times not correct, but still, nonetheless, it's something that you can build from. I actually, whenever I go on a listing presentation, I always pull down the zestimates and from other big websites, realtor.com, and just to see what the projective sellers, what they're looking at. So they know they have a meeting with me, and you have to assume that they've already looked at themselves on Redfin, Zillow, and realtor.com, so they have an idea. So you have to put that on the table and say, okay, let's talk about where they think you are and where I think you are, depending on my knowledge of the local real estate market.
Yeah.
So I just think that Zillow, you can't knock them. They've been very successful, but somebody else will come along and knock them down.
Maybe.
But there's CoStar, this fellow that owns CoStar has made this big push, and you've seen all the Super Bowl ads and everything about homes.com.
Yeah.
And if you ever had the opportunity to look at the CoStar MLS, it's very, very expensive, but it's very, very comprehensive. The amount of data you can get from the CoStar on the commercial end is incredible. Now, that company is now trying to knock off, they want to compete with Zillow. Yeah. And I will tell you that I do have their app on my phone, and I do look at their information. I think that they did have a app that I thought was a great mobile app that you could access the MLS. It was called Snapshot or something like that.
Yeah, HomeSnap, I think.
HomeSnap, that was it. And they did away with it. I don't think their new one is as good, but Bright MLS does have a phone app as well. It's just not as good. It just doesn't work as well. But there are other players out there that are trying to take some market share from Zillow. And I think this Homes.com, they're a very smart guy. And he's got a lot of experience and success behind him. And I'm really interested in seeing, he's got my attention, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Rather than Zillow. So.
I've seen some social media posts from some pretty well-known realtors, like social media famous realtors and whatnot, and they're talking about. I'm like, they're definitely getting a paycheck on the back end to be talking about that like this. But I do think it.
Wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah. So